bring to you a short conversation with an expert or thought leader in the realm of innovation for the built environment. My name is Jeff Echols. I am a senior advisor and the head of marketing for Shadow Partners. And today's episode of Shadow Shorts is going to be very different. It is the Labor Day holiday here in the U.S. where I am based. And so in true Labor Day fashion, I'm going to bring you a Shadow Shorts marathon. Over the course of this day, you're going to see a number, maybe even a couple of dozen replay episodes of Shadow Shorts covering everything from AI and machine learning to apps that are designed for fintech and construction tech or CRE tech to talking about leadership and innovation. It's going to be a great day, a lot of episodes of Shadow Shorts. I hope you enjoy this, and we'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Shadow Shorts. Hey, welcome back to Shadow Shorts. If you're new to the show, but you're familiar with Shadow Ventures or Shadow Partners, first of all, you're probably not going to recognize me, but you are going to recognize my guest today. My name is Jeff Echols. I'm a senior advisor and the head of marketing for Shadow Partners. And my guest today is KP Reddy. He's the founder, general partner at Shadow Ventures. And I wanted to bring KP on today to talk about the VC landscape, certainly, but what is the reality of venture capital and what's the reality of investing in innovation for the built environment? So KP, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I'm glad you're here to talk about the VC landscape.
Very cool. This will be fun.
Yeah, it will. And everybody out there that knows you, that's familiar with innovation in the built environment, knows that you've got your finger on the pulse of what's going on around here. So I know you wanted to speak to the idea of buying low and selling high, but what's the reality of that when it comes to investing in this world?
Yeah, I'd put something out on social media on this topic, and it's like a made up thing, right? Like, you know how you make money in stocks? You buy low, you sell high. It's like, well, duh, right? So I think part of me was just like poking fun with how people like to simplify kind of investing strategies. I think one of the things that, when you look at venture versus like maybe public markets have high liquidity. So if you see a stock you like and it's down and you go and buy it, you can jump out of it and then write it off, right? You can do that, or you can write it up and sell. So the liquidity of the public markets kind of creates this very short-term view of the world, and that's what's interesting. Whenever you talk to, I was out with a Fortune 500 private company yesterday actually, and they're like, yeah, we look year to year. We're not looking months and quarters. And so when you look at the public markets, this idea of the term financialism, which is living month to month, quarter to quarter to put up your best results with a lot of lack of long-term thinking, because there's liquidity, because your shareholders can decide tomorrow that they're out, and when they're out, stock drops, right? So it's such a different sport, so to speak. Same game, different sport, but and I think those ideas of in and out kind of work in that world. I think what I found, kind of what prompted that post was, if you look at the venture market, it's highly dependent on the flow of capital into these markets from LPs, from angel investors, and then venture funds deploying. And it's quite fascinating to see the lack of pragmatism. It's like, well, everybody's investing in this company. It's clearly overpriced. It clearly will never live up to that valuation. But there's this momentum investing game, and everybody starts deploying capital. What's interesting is like the soft cycle we're in now, this is when founders are being much more pragmatic themselves. The real operators that actually are thinking about, if I have to run this business forever and get it to cash flow, they're still in the game. They're still running around. And by the way, their cost basis of operating startups is much lower. You don't have people saying like, well, I need a signing bonus and a this and a that. Like, you can recruit people at, I would say, more a market value price than maybe you could 2 years ago. So the capital is going a lot further. Yet people are scared of venture capital. Yet the LPs are saying, well, I don't know. And it's like, so you were more excited about deploying capital into this asset class when valuations were through the roof. And so it's a little bit of kind of the markets that kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth, right? And I think the reality with venture, especially, is its rules are just very different. It's definitely more of a one winner, nine loser power law dynamic than the public market. So I find it fascinating. This is the best time, in my opinion, to be starting a startup. So think about that. Like, what happens when three buddies at a company get laid off and they have an idea? Well, while they're on unemployment, they can work on their idea and they can, go do something and start something, maybe get some people to side hustle, help them code something or whatnot. Whereas in a really hot market, nobody's losing their job and nobody's leaving their job to come work for your dumb startup. That's just how it is. So it's a super interesting time where like the psychology is like overruling pragmatism.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And for anybody out there that is not familiar with Shadow Ventures or with you and your work, um, you're looking at this from the point of view of vetting a lot of startups, about having a lot of conversations and talking to a lot of people in this world, right? What's your day to day or week to week look like?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, that's the part of my job I love. I get about 50 inbound a week, plus or minus, interview 10 to 12 a week, kind of first calls. And I do all the first calls myself because I think coming from the entrepreneurial space, I think it's such a disservice and almost disrespectful to say, there's a person on one end that's like betting their life, career, maybe their second mortgage towards making something work. And then you tell them to go talk to an analyst. Like, go talk to this kid over here. I just think it's the wrong way to do business. It makes my schedule very challenging, as you know. But that, to me, that's the job. That's the job I signed up for. Is really what it is. And yes, the temperament of startups and founders is very different right now. What I appreciate, we've always told founders like, hey, we want to help you. Like, I think our mission focus, in a way, we want everybody to do well. Right. There's way too many problems in our market. We're not going to have 4 companies solve all the problems. It's like 4 million companies are going to solve all the problems. And so we really try to leave the door open because a lot of people do get caught up in the psychology of the time and like, my startup's worth this. I'm like, well, I disagree. So, keep us in the loop. A year later, they come back and like, yeah, you're probably about right. And can we keep talking? And I think that's the difference. I mean, our focus is, investing in startups that are actually solving massive, complicated problems, and doing it with deep technology, not just like, oh, I built an app stuff.
So one of the things that's coming up in the world of Shadow is coming up at this October in Atlanta is Shadow Summit.
Mm-hmm.
And you gave me a really good description the other day of how you see Shadow Summit. Do you want to talk for just a minute about the summit? It's coming up October 25th and 26th in Atlanta. What can we expect out of Shadow Summit?
Yeah, I think we talked about, part of the timing of it is, there's a lot of companies that do what I call unfunded innovation. They have an innovation officer, they're studying the market, they're going to events. But when it comes down to it and, there needs to be board approval to spend money, whether it's investing or adopting, whatever it is, I find that October through the rest of the year is a good time to start setting your agenda for the next year. So the idea is like you bring the market, the customers, the architects, engineers, contractors, real estate developers, and you bring in a bunch of our startups. You bring in other startups, and the idea is for them to frame out like, okay, here's what happened last year. Here's what's been happening. How do we frame that out to what we should be doing next year in innovation? And here's these themes around technology, themes around use cases. And, the feedback, this is our 7th year doing it, which I can't believe. And the constant feedback is like, KP, I feel like I earned a PhD coming to this conference. Like it's not a lot of self promotion. It's a little bit of people say things that you have to Google. I've seen, CEOs of major firms taking copious notes. It's like, it's that kind of conference. It's not someone's going to get up there and talk about themselves. It's much more like being informative and holistic around trends and all of that. So
Yeah, that's one thing that I've enjoyed. I've benefited from having some of these conversations and also planning for Shadow Summit coming up. These really are conversations that are deep dives. Not only, we have a very short format here in Shadow Shorts, obviously, but if you like these kinds of conversations, you value these kinds of conversations, we're just going to go 10x or more, maybe more deep on these types of conversations come October for Shadow Summit. It really is. I think Ian said it earlier today when we were on the call. He said, we kind of geek out
yeah,
on the content that we produce. It goes that deep.
yeah, yeah. I had a CEO once tell me, like, Summit, it helps me keep my CTO honest. I come and learn stuff. Um,
Yep, you're good.
I don't know what just happened. Sorry.
No, you're
Um,
fine.
Hey, I get to learn stuff and go back to the office and challenge my CTO.
I love it, and that's important, right? We bounce these ideas off against each other and challenge ideas, and it's all about moving these ideas and moving these innovations forward in the built environment. So, um,
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting. We keep it under 200 people. It's mostly executives. I mean, other than, even the startups are executives, right? But of smaller companies, but it's mostly executives. So it just becomes a lot more strategic. It's people that can make decisions. It's people that you can build a relationship and say, let's go take this risk together. Let's go jump off of this cliff together, right? Like that kind of thing. Um, Instead of having to go through this wild org chart to get to the right people, it's like you have the right people there. And then the other thing is, like, what I've grown up in this industry, and what I always love is how people, there's just a greater good collaboration idea. I was talking to a bunch of CEOs in the construction space. It's like job site safety. Nobody wants to compete on that. It's like, oh, I killed and hurt less people than you. Like that's not a competitive thing. People want to do good, and people want to say, hey, what's working for you? What's your best practice? How do we do this? How do we do that? And that's what I love about our industry. It's a massive industry, but in many ways it's a close knit group that really influences and changes, what our future looks like.
yeah, that's a good point. I'm looking forward to October. And if you want, like I said, if you want to know more, shadowsummit.com, the URL is in the bottom left of your screen right now. Um, Reach out to KP. He's accessible. I'm accessible. Um, Maybe your reach out to KP gets pushed my way, which is perfectly fine. But we are happy to have you join the conversation and want you to come along with us. Help us push innovation for the built environment. That's what this is all about, so that everybody wins. KP, thanks a lot for joining me today for
Thanks,
this
Jeff.
Shadow Short and talking about the reality of investing in the VC world and innovation for the built environment. And we'll see everybody again for the next Shadow Short.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks. Hey, welcome back to Shadow Shorts. My name is Jeff Echols. I'm a senior advisor and the head of marketing at Shadow Partners. And today I am joined by a friend of mine, Evan Troxel. Evan is the architectural community director for the TectApp. He's also the host of the Peopleverse. We'll probably touch on that real quickly. And the Troxel podcast, which is TRXL. If you're interested in innovation and digital in the AEC world, you definitely need to check out the Troxel podcast. He's also the co-host of the Archispeak podcast and has been for quite a long time. So, Evan, thanks for joining me today. Um, that's an awful lot of podcasts. It's an awful lot of content. Um,
Yes.
and so this is just old hat for you to join me and jump in on conversations like this.
Happy to be here, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. When we were talking about having this conversation, I asked you, what's top of mind? What are you seeing as you look out across the architecture landscape, the AEC landscape? You look out across innovation. You're involved with a digital product, if we can describe it that way, in the
hmm
TectApp.
hmm
And I said, what's a problem that you see that needs to be solved? And you talked about, we're drowning in data. Digital fatigue is a real thing. So, what does digital fatigue mean,
hmm
and where does it come from?
Yeah, technology fatigue, digital fatigue, app fatigue. I think all of these are synonymous. And it's really just what I'm hearing from the architectural community. And so it's not necessarily a personal opinion, although I do feel like this sometimes. I think I'm echoing what I'm hearing from
Hmm.
architects everywhere, which is like there's so many tools and there's so much complexity in managing the building process, the design process, that it's like, seriously, another one, right? And so there's a lot of innovation happening, but the adoption is very, it's at a way lower level than
Right.
the innovation curve. Innovation's exponential. Adoption, as we've seen the McKinsey graph since, forever ago, decades, is just staying rather flat,
Hmm.
productivity wise, efficiency wise. And I think that just has a lot to do with there's always higher and higher requirements, or maybe these are just set by ourselves, but of what we're putting into our projects. And so it doesn't feel like we're making a lot of progress. And so I think that all of that kind of leads up to this perfect storm of like, how do we keep up? How do we keep our heads above water? How do we make a profit? How do we stay competitive uh, with everything that's being bombarded? All of our senses are being bombarded with all of the tech that's going on out there, all of the data. And so you mentioned the Peopleverse podcast. I mean, uh, the kinds of things that we're really working on is getting back to foundations of, I think, something that technology is lacking in really coming up with better ways just to build on the intense amount, or the vast amount of wisdom and experience that exists in our industry, to help us get somewhere faster, because we are all drowning in a sea of data. I mean, you do a search for any building product, which is kind of, our realm at Tech, online, and you get millions upon millions of results. And it's, what am I supposed to do with that? I mean, this is what architects are saying. What am I supposed to do with that? So I don't know. There's a lot going on there. I mean, I'm already kind of rambling, but these are all the things that I'm hearing and synthesizing back into our approach of what we're doing at Tech and the Peopleverse, is getting back to kind of some of the fundamentals of the power of wisdom and relationships as a baseline to build technology upon and use it to further what those fundamentals can actually do for us in the short term.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I had this conversation last week. We were actually talking about it before we went live here. With all the tools that are out there, as you're saying, one of my questions for a person that I was talking to is, as an architecture firm or an AE firm, or whatever it is that you do, whatever your organization is, um, would you rather, right? Because we have a lot of boutique tools. Hey, here's this tool it's a generative design tool for
Mm-hmm,
multifamily
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
design, or here's this other AI driven, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's boutique. Maybe it is for our niche. Maybe it's not. But as we start to look around to do our work, this was my question last week, was, would you rather have a bunch of little boutique tools, which mean now that you have this tech stack,
mm-hmm.
or would you rather have a behemoth that swallows up all of these tools? And there's no right or wrong answer to this, I don't think. Would you rather have this behemoth that swallows up all these tools and they become plugins to the main? And that led to a really interesting conversation. And at the end of the day, I think the answer was it depends.
Sure.
And it depends on what data is going in, what data is coming out, and what we're able to do with that, how we're able to work with it.
Yeah.
Which I think it brings it back around to an interesting aspect of what you're talking about. In these types of conversations, I've talked to founders, I've talked to people that have tools that say, hey, we generate a lot of data, we gather a lot of data, but do we actually do anything
Right.
with the majority of that data? So maybe that's another tangent off of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to hear what those conversations are, because you're right, there are trade-offs either way when it comes to a bunch of bespoke little tools that we think about it in terms of a puzzle at TectApp. And there's very few people looking at it at the puzzle scale. A lot of people are looking at it as the individual puzzle piece scale.
Right.
And I think we're seeing more innovation in the puzzle piece approach than we are in the big behemoth approach, at least right now. Not only that, but how long does it take to create the next behemoth? It takes a very long time, right? And so not only that, but architects won't adopt it until it's 10 or 15 years like proven, right? This is getting back to that idea of adoption versus innovation. So there's always this kind of lagging. Architecture is often the lagging indicator in these things. So as far as the data goes, it's an interesting conversation, because I think a lot of times you're right. We're just cramming data in and then not seeing the value in what we can do with it after the fact. Why? Because there's another project that we got to get started now, right? We're kind of quote unquote done with this one, move to the next. And this is all based on the business model of architecture as it has been for a very long time, right? And so the machine needs to keep running. The business model is what it is. And I say that in my famous podcasting air quotes, because it doesn't have to be that way, but that's how we do decide to continue. And so it proliferates, and we don't look at the project continuing after we deliver it, where that data then becomes the basis of study. And interesting conversation I was having with my co-host of ArchiSpeak, Cormac Phelan, the other day when we were touring the Autodesk R&D facility in San Francisco at the AIA conference. And they were talking about this innovation lab and prototypes. Like they're making these prototype products. And every building is a prototype for the most part when it comes to architecture. It's a one-off. And it's based on ideas that were synthesized. And this thing was produced to solve problems for the owners or the clients of those clients potentially. And the architect is rarely involved in that after delivery and actually how it works and how that it moves forward. And again, it goes back to that business model. Well, that's not our business model, is to continue that conversation. We may do an after occupancy survey, but then what? I mean, I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't want to let you go until, you mentioned TectApp earlier, and you touched briefly on what you're doing there, how you're bringing these things together. So take a minute to tell us a little bit about Tect, what it is, and your methodology, the problem that you're solving and how you're solving it.
Yeah, I mean, the process of, first, let me just set the foundation. Our buildings are made of products, period. Building products. And architects and engineers and other design professionals on the design team orchestrate this amazing combination of products. And sometimes that's unique and sometimes it isn't. and it kind of depends on all, everything that goes into a building. And the selection process is completely broken. I mean, getting back to that idea of we're drowning in data. Like I said, do a search for a building product and you get millions of results. Now what? Like, am I even asking the right question? That's kind of if I'm going down a new avenue when it comes to an innovative building product, how do I even know if I'm going down the right path? How do I know if it's in my cost ballpark? How do I know it's going to hit my performance needs in this building? How do I know any of those things? The answer is you talk to an expert. That's the answer. And it's not going to be a 4-hour long Google search where I end up shopping for shoes. That's often what happens, right? And so TECT fundamentally connects people at the earliest stages of design, from the design team to the experts on the building product side who know more about their product category. And we say category because their product is not the focus. It's how it fits into an assembly. It's how it works with other pieces and parts of the building at the earliest stages of design, so we can make better decisions sooner, because that is what is going to accelerate, we feel, the quality of architecture in the built environment. And that's why this is a fundamental piece of the puzzle that a lot of technology is not solving for, is that, you don't have to, there's nothing to adopt here. You don't even have to learn a new tool. All you need to do is click a button and get in contact with a person. You already know how to talk to them. So the talent exists on both sides of this equation. We're the neutral connector between those two sides of the table.
There you have it, the Switzerland of building products and architects.
Yes.
I love it. If you want to know more about the TectApp, tect.com, the URL is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen right now. And if you enjoy these types of conversations where we get to go deep on a particular topic, Evan and I were talking before we went live. We're working right now on Shadow Summit. It's the 7th annual Shadow Summit. It'll take place in October 24th through 26th in Atlanta. Shadowsummit.com, that website is under a revamp right now as we prepare for the summit. But one of my colleagues described, actually two different colleagues with two different descriptions. Shadow Summit, according to our CEO, KP Reddy, 2023 will be Cliff Notes version of everything that's happened in terms of innovation in the built environment 2023, and a preview of what you should be planning for and budgeting for in terms of innovation for 2024. So that's important. It's important to understand that. We're going to cover innovation. We're going to talk about what's happening, what's important, what's impactful, and also look towards the future there. But another colleague said that, what really happens in this purposefully small, intimate setting is we dig deep into conversations, topics just like these that Evan and I are having right now, and we geek out on those conversations. So if you like these types of conversations, if you want to go even deeper on digital fatigue, et cetera, things like robotics and 3D printing and all of the innovations that we're seeing across the built environment, Shadow Summit may be for you. So shadowsummit.com is a place where you can find out more about that. So Evan, thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you for doing this, and super interesting topic and perspective. And I think we're all suffering for digital fatigue right now in different ways, certainly, whether it's buying shoes or it is figuring out that tech stack and what to do with the data. So thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you out there, thanks for joining us again for a Shadow Short. Try to do this every day at noon Eastern. We're still in startup mode, getting the ball rolling here. So check us out here on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Twitter, and we'll see you for the next Shadow Short. Thanks, everybody. All right, welcome back to Shadow Shorts. It looks a little bit different today on Shadow Shorts because I'm on the road today. I'm in Boston, so a little different background and different environment here. And I'm joined today by my friend Jennifer Castenson. She is in Cincinnati, and Jennifer is the Vice President of Ambassador and Partner Programs at BuildXact. And um, like I said, Jennifer and I are friends. We've known each other for quite a while. And I know Jennifer to be focused on innovation in housing. So I asked her if she would come on today and talk to me about, or talk with me about sustainability, which I know is something that's always on the top of her mind, but it's something that's top of mind right now. So first of all, Jennifer, welcome. Thanks for doing this. And let's talk sustainability and innovation in housing.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff. It's great to see you. And I feel like you should have a Boston accent for this show.
I will not even attempt it because I will butcher it, and I don't want to have anybody call me wicked stupid or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate what Shadow Ventures does to propel innovation in the space. And I think that Reddy and the team do a phenomenal job with that. And I know that I was able to speak at one of the conferences a couple of years ago, and it was on sustainability as well. So I'm excited to be back and be talking about the topic again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. Like I said, we've been friends. There's a lot of relationships going on here, and important conversations. Right? You have focused on housing for a long time. We've had lots of conversations about housing, and not only, if we think about Shadow Ventures and some of the portfolio companies, or many of the portfolio companies at Shadow Ventures are focused somehow on sustainability, whatever that means in their niche, in their space. So when you think about sustainability in housing, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What's top of the list? What's the hottest item? When you start thinking about sustainability as it applies to your space.
Yeah, so I would say that's what's top of my mind is energy retrofits. So we have a lot of existing housing that needs to be brought up to the next level of efficiency so that we can meet our decarbonization goals as a country.
Okay. And when we think about that retrofit, and you're, I don't even know this, I'm in Boston, like I said. Most of the buildings here in Boston are older than the state of Indiana where I live. So, they're obviously not up to any, or weren't built to any current codes, let alone thinking this far out into the future, 2023, 24, 25, and beyond. But we're building homes now that some are looking that far into the future, some are not, but much of our existing housing stock is not. So when you think about energy retrofits, as you said, what are some steps that you're focusing on in order to head in that direction?
Sure. So we at BuildXact have actually created a partnership with the ABC Collaborative, which is the Advanced Building Construction body of the United States Department of Energy. And they wrote, which will hopefully soon be released, a market guidance report that instructs the industry on how to do retrofits to bring housing up to zero carbon alignment. So, and that report, it just has oodles of information, data about the existing homes. There are 40 million units, and what needs a mechanical swap out, what needs an envelope retrofit. So there's so many different levels of intervention that the existing housing stock will need. And the ABC Collaborative has put that into interactive graphics for the industry to dig into. But, there's so much innovation that's happening in that space. If you look at where the startups are actually able to make an impact is, in the solar that can be then installed with heat pumps, with geothermal systems, with gray water systems, the energy monitoring, EV chargers, the batteries that exist in housing to store energy, and then grid revenue programs. So there's just lots of innovation happening in that space. that will be just inspired or catalyzed by this Inflation Reduction Act, hopefully.
Oh, great. And when we were going back and forth and planning this conversation, that was one of the things that you talked about was what's the right way to say it? The government intervention, maybe that's probably not the right way to say it, but I think that is something that I've thought about for a long time. What does it take? Somebody asked me one time, how do you get people interested in green or sustainability, or how do you get someone to want to be green or sustainable? And to me, it's the same question: is how do you get your kids, maybe it's a toddler, to eat vegetables? It depends, right? But I think some really big um, some really big pushes in terms of business, the economy, et cetera, are going to be necessary to get people to move forward. So I'm interested to learn more about the ABC Collaborative. I'm going to grab a URL and pop it up here on the screen a little bit. But what does the partnership between BuildXact and ABC Collaborative look like?
Yeah, so we actually worked with them they created a retrofit design tool where a user can go in and put in 12 different things for their home. That defines kind of what they would need in order to bring that home to zero carbon alignment. And it's just recommendations. And after you plug in these 12 things on what type of insulation, what type of windows, all these other components, where you are in the world, because your climate zone makes an impact. So after you put in those various components, it will give you the recommendations. Those recommendations will lead to our BuildXact software, where they feed into a bill of materials. So that bill of materials a contractor would be able to execute on that bill of materials instead of having to translate those packages or the recommendation or the report from ABC Collaborative that is more than 200 pages. They don't have to go through that. It's kind of like hitting the easy button. They can understand where it is. And that's what contractors need right now. They don't have enough labor. They don't have enough resources. As soon as people start understanding the implications of the energy savings, when a lot of people are getting hit by so much inflation right now, they want to take advantage of those energy savings. They're going to be hiring to get some of those rebates and tax credits, and then save on their energy bill as well. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Not only is it catalyst, so you get the catalyst side, but then you've also got the, like you said, the easy button side,
Yeah.
which I think is really important. Left to our own devices, how much research can we actually do, given the time and resources that we have? I dropped the URL in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. It's a long one, but if you want to find out more about the ABC Collaborative, there it is. It's energy.gov/ERE/buildings/ABC-collaborative. So check that out. And so this is all about innovation, right? And I think what you're doing at BuildXact, not only in this partnership, which certainly is going to push and facilitate more innovation, but the software, the tools that you have created even outside of this partnership, I think are game changing, because, as you said, I mean, there's I think the breadth of the contracting business, the contracting industry. Of course, there's a huge spectrum, everything from working off of my dashboard to multi-billion-dollar construction companies, and BuildXact has its place, has its niche in that spectrum somewhere. But I love what you're doing with the software there. Can you tell us just a little bit more about what BuildXact is, who it's for, what it does?
Sure. Yeah. So BuildXact is a project management and business development tool for custom home builders and contractors. And so it does everything from pre-design all the way to final invoice that a contractor can manage online. It has a sales component with CRM tools. Then it has timelines, scheduling, takeoffs, estimates, sending purchase orders. It connects directly to suppliers via an ERP for high fidelity information in terms of pricing, so they can manage their profits a little bit better as well, and especially in today's crazy market. So there's a lot of it's basically for a builder or remodeler contractor who doesn't have the back end systems. BuildXact will do it all for them, so it becomes their business partner.
Nice. It's a good tool, and this I think the dashboard, if you will, or the integration with what's happening over at ABC Collaborative is again, it's game changing. Right? All of this is about managing business, doing all the things that allow you to do more of what you're good at, more of where your impact is really highest. So I love how all this is coming together.
Yeah, and so we're in the process too of integrating with some other industry leaders in terms of sustainability, and talking to Passive House Institute, some other groups that are doing the permitting process, some other groups that are automating rebates. So there's a lot of opportunity to make things easier and more convenient for the builder and the contractor to take advantage of what the federal government has put in place.
Yeah, that's good. That's especially for someone who's a big part of their role is partnerships. Every time you bring up a new partnership, it's like, we're all on the same page. If you're out there watching this and you want to learn more about what Jennifer is talking about, first of all, buildexact.com. The URL is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen right now. And then I'm going to pop the ABC Collaborative URL back up on the screen real quickly. Go check out both of those places. Of course, you can connect with Jennifer on LinkedIn, where you're probably watching this video right now. And if you want more conversations like this, no promises today, but you may actually find Jennifer Castenson at Shadow Summit later this year in October in Atlanta. Shadowsummit.com is a place to find out more information. This will be the 7th annual Shadow Summit in Atlanta, Georgia, October 24th. That'll be our opening reception on the 24th, 25th, and 26th. And so I'm going to give you two sort of quotes here. KP Reddy, our CEO, has said that Shadow Summit will be a recap, a Cliff's Notes version of everything that's happened in terms of innovation in the built environment in 2023, as well as a preview of what you need to plan for and budget for in 2024. And so that's how KP summed up what Shadow Summit will be. And I think that's a great summary. And then someone else on our team said, the thing that really makes Shadow Summit different is that the conversations that we have are not superfluous conversations. They're not these high level conversations. We may dig into innovation and sustainability in housing, but we're going to really geek out on that conversation. We're going to really go deep. These are conversations where you really get into the weeds on these topics that we cover, the conversations that we cover. So if that sounds like something you want, shadowsummit.com is the place to go to find more information. We're rebuilding that website right now. So we'll be rolling out schedule information, speaker information very, very soon on that coming up. And like I said, connect with Jennifer Castenson on LinkedIn. Go to buildexact.com to learn more about BuildXact. And Jennifer, thank you so much for this short conversation. We could go on for a long time with this.
Yeah.
I would love to.
Big topic.
It is a big topic. It's called Shadow Short, so we've got to wrap it up.
Thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate you. And thanks for this conversation and all the work that you're doing over there at BuildXact. And to you out there that's watching this, again, we'll be back. We do this every day, 10, 15 minutes every weekday at noon Eastern. We'll be back tomorrow with another Shadow Short. So we'll see you soon.